Hey everyone, it's Olivia here, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I wanted to share something that happened to me earlier, something so relatable I just know you'll have experienced it too. You know those moments when your brain just decides to take the simplest thing and turn it into a 10-minute epic? Well, that happened to me. I overthought a simple text for a full 10 minutes, and honestly, the whole experience was kind of soothing, in a strange way. It was just a quick reply to a friend about meeting up for coffee, but suddenly, I was analyzing every possible interpretation, rewriting the message a dozen times, and wondering if a single emoji would change the entire tone. My mind was a whirlwind of what-ifs and second-guessing. It was exhausting, yet oddly calming, like entangling a really complicated knot. I was lost in this little world of punctuation and word choice. You will not believe the number of drafts I went through. And you know what? I realized how much we overthink these tiny interactions sometimes. It makes you appreciate the simplicity of a face-to-face conversation, doesn't it? So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together, exploring these little everyday moments. New videos are released daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you have these grand plans. Like, really grand plans? That's how it was with this city bike tour. I'd seen the brochures, all sunshine and smiling faces gliding effortlessly past iconic landmarks. Explore the hidden gems, they promised. Experience the city like a local. Yeah, right. Let me tell you, my experience was, well, it was an experience. Not quite what I'd envisioned, mind you. It all started, bleakly. Seriously, the sky was this oppressive gray, the kind that just sucks the joy out of everything. And it was chilly, that damp, bone-chilling cold that seeps right into you. Not ideal biking weather, you know what I mean, but I'm not one to back down easily. I'd booked the tour, damn it, and I was going on it. So, there I was, standing awkwardly in a little square, surrounded by these bright, shiny, ridiculously cheerful bikes. Everyone else seemed so prepared. Lycra-clad, water bottles clipped to their frames, those little cycling computers attached to their handlebars. Me? I was in jeans and a slightly too thin jacket, clutching a lukewarm coffee I'd grabbed from a nearby kiosk. I felt utterly out of place. Like a penguin at a flamingo convention. The tour guide, a relentlessly cheerful woman named Brenda, was all boundless energy, despite the weather. She had this booming voice that echoed across the square. "Welcome, everyone, to our historical highlights tour," she chirped, her breath puffing out in little white clouds. She explained the route, pointing out key landmarks on a laminated map, her finger tracing lines I already knew I'd forget. I was too busy trying to figure out how the gears worked. I hadn't ridden a bike in, well, let's just say it had been a while. And then, we were off. Or, I should say, they were off. I, on the other hand, fumbled with the pedals, nearly toppling over before I even got started. A few sympathetic glances came my way. Brenda, bless her heart, offered a quick, slightly strained smile and a hurried, "Keep up." Easy for her to say, she was practically gliding on air. The first part of the tour was blurry. A blur of cobblestones, honking cars, and the faint smell of diesel. I was so focused on not crashing that I barely noticed the historical highlights. We whizzed past a grand cathedral, its Gothic spires disappearing behind a bus. Then, a charming little market square, the vibrant colors of the stalls lost in my panicked periphery. It was all a bit underwhelming. Then came the hill. Oh, the hill. It wasn't Everest, but it might as well have been. My legs burned, my lungs ached, and that lukewarm coffee I'd had earlier threatened to make a reappearance. I was lagging behind, hopelessly, the bright, cheerful bikes shrinking into the distance. I considered just giving up, abandoning my bike at the side of the road and hailing a cab. Seriously, I did. But then, something happened. I reached the top. Gasping for air, legs trembling, I stopped, and looked back. And you know what? The view, it was stunning. The entire city stretched out before me, a tapestry of rooftops and spires, bathed in a soft, diffused light that filtered through the clouds. The gray sky, which had seemed so oppressive earlier, now lent a certain drama to the scene. It was breathtaking, worth every aching muscle. From then on, things got better. I mean, I still wasn't exactly graceful, but I was managing. I even started to notice the details. The intricate carvings on the buildings, the flower boxes overflowing with vibrant blooms, the smell of freshly baked bread wafting from a nearby bakery. I even managed a shaky wave to a group of children playing in a park. We stopped at a little cafe nestled beside a canal. Brenda finally stopped beaming long enough to take a breath and share some actual historical facts, rather than just pointing and shouting. I sipped a hot chocolate, feeling the warmth spread through me, chasing away the lingering chill. The other tourists chatted amongst themselves, sharing their impressions. I listened, smiling, feeling a sense of camaraderie I hadn't expected. We were all in this slightly ridiculous, slightly uncomfortable adventure together. Guess what happened next? It started to rain. Not just a drizzle, but a proper downpour. We all huddled under the awning of the cafe, watching the water cascade down the cobblestones. Brenda, her cheerful facade finally cracking, let out a sigh. "Well," she said, "this is unexpected." We all laughed. It was absurd, really. The whole day had been unexpected. The ride back was wet. Very wet. My jeans were soaked, my hair plastered too. My face and my glasses were covered in raindrops. But, strangely, I didn't mind. There was a certain freedom in it, a certain letting go. We splashed through puddles, laughing like children. The city, washed clean by the rain, seemed to shimmer. Even the gray sky seemed a little less gloomy. By the time we reached the starting point, I was drenched, exhausted, and happy. Surprisingly happy. The bike tour hadn't been anything like I'd imagined. It had been challenging, uncomfortable, and at times, downright miserable. But it had also been memorable. I'd seen the city from a different perspective, felt the burn in my muscles, the wind in my hair, or what was left of it after the rain. I'd shared a slightly soggy, slightly chaotic experience with a group of strangers. And you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything. It reminded me that sometimes, the best experiences are the ones you don't plan, the ones that take you by surprise, the ones that force you to step outside your comfort zone, even if it means getting completely drenched in the process. So, yeah, that was my city bike tour. A day of gray skies, aching muscles, and unexpected joy. And honestly, I kind of loved it. Maybe next time, I'll invest in some Lycra though. Just maybe. Okay, so, picture this. It's a Tuesday. Not just any Tuesday, mind you, but a Tuesday of epic proportions. At least, it felt that way at the time. The kind of Tuesday where the air hangs heavy with the promise of rain, and the sky outside is that peculiar shade of grayish blue, you know, like a watercolor painting gone slightly wrong? I'm hunched over my laptop, a steaming mug of chamomile tea beside me. Yes, chamomile. I was trying to be zen about the whole thing, and I'm drowning. Absolutely drowning in a sea of words. I was working on this huge project, a massive document, like, seriously, it felt like War and Peace, only with more bullet points. Deadlines loomed, my eyes were already blurring, and the cursor on my screen blinked mockingly, like a little digital gremlin taunting my weary soul. Go on, it seemed to say, just one more page. You can do it, or can you? You know that feeling, right? That overwhelming sense of, there's just too much to do, and not enough time. Yeah, well, I was marinated in it. The air in my little home office was thick with the scent of desperation, faintly mingled with the calming chamomile which, let's be honest, was losing the battle. I'd been highlighting, copying, pasting, formatting, all the usual writerly shenanigans, for hours. My fingers ached, my back protested with every tiny shift, and my brain felt like a scrambled Rubik's Cube. Every click of the mouse, every tap of the keyboard, was a tiny act of rebellion against the mountain of work that still lay ahead. And then, it happened. I needed to copy a particularly long paragraph, a real behemoth of a sentence, sprawling across multiple lines like a literary vine. I highlighted it with my cursor, painstakingly dragging it from beginning to end, the blue highlighting shimmering like a promise of progress. Usually, I'd right-click, select, copy, then scroll down, right-click again, and choose Paste. A tedious, two-step process, but hey, it was all I knew. It was my ritual, my dance with the digital demons. But this time, in a moment of pure, unadulterated frustration, I accidentally hit some keys. I don't even know which ones, honestly. It was a spasm of tired fingers, a digital cry for help. Control plus something, maybe Shift? Alt? Who knows? It was a keyboard symphony of despair. And then, like magic, the highlighted text vanished. Poof. Gone. My heart lurched. No, no, no. I whispered, staring at the screen in disbelief. Had I just deleted hours of work? My carefully crafted sentences, my precious paragraphs, reduced to digital dust? Panic clawed at my throat. I felt a cold sweat prickling my skin. The chamomile tea suddenly seemed like a cruel joke. I frantically clicked the undo button. Nothing. Tried it again. Still nothing. My breath hitched. This was it. This was the moment my laptop staged a coup and I lost everything. I could practically hear the tiny digital gremlin cackling in triumph. And then, as I scrolled down, preparing myself for the worst, I saw it. The paragraph. My beautiful, sprawling paragraph. Sitting there, snug as a bug in a rug, exactly where I needed it. I blinked. I rubbed my eyes. I took a long, slow sip of the now lukewarm chamomile. What just happened? Cautiously, I scrolled back up, re-highlighted the same passage, and, in a moment of sheer, blind faith, pressed the same random combination of keys. Control plus Shift plus down arrow. Yes, I eventually figured it out. And poof. Again, the text vanished. And then, reappearing like a digital phoenix, it landed exactly where my cursor was positioned below. I stared at the screen, my mouth slightly agape. Had I just discovered a shortcut? A secret passage in the labyrinthine world of word processing? A hidden portal to productivity? It was a revelation. A tiny, insignificant miracle in the grand scheme of things, but in that moment, it felt like winning the lottery. I felt a rush of exhilaration, a surge of pure, unadulterated joy. I laughed, a slightly hysterical, slightly delirious laugh, the kind that comes from sheer relief and utter exhaustion. You see, up until that point, I had been plodding along, blissfully unaware of this magical key combination. I had been a digital peasant, toiling in the fields of copy and paste, while the shortcut express train whizzed by, unseen, unheard. Suddenly, everything changed. I felt like I had been granted access to a secret society, a clandestine club of keyboard ninjas. I was no longer a mere mortal, bound by the tedious click and drag routine. I was a shortcut sorceress, a copy-paste conjurer, a master of the digital domain. I spent the next hour, maybe more, just playing with the new shortcut. Copying and pasting, moving paragraphs around, rearranging sentences, feeling the power surge through my fingertips with every keystroke. The mountain of work still loomed, but it no longer seemed so insurmountable. I had a secret weapon, a hidden advantage. I had Control plus Shift plus down arrow. The rain eventually started, a soft, gentle patter against the window pane, a soothing soundtrack to my newfound digital prowess. The chamomile tea, though cold, suddenly tasted sweeter. The gremlin on my screen, I imagined, had retreated to its digital lair, defeated and disgruntled. That Tuesday, the day I learned a new shortcut key, might seem insignificant to some. But for me, it was a turning point. It was a reminder that even in the most mundane tasks, there are hidden gems waiting to be discovered, small moments of magic that can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And sometimes, all it takes is a little accidental keyboard symphony to unlock a whole new world. You know what I mean? Learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But remember, the only approval you need is your own. Think about it. You're doing this for you, to expand your horizons and connect with the world in a new way. That self-motivation is the most powerful fuel. Trust yourself, embrace the journey, and celebrate every little victory along the way. It's about progress, not perfection, and you've already started, which is amazing. You know what I've been trying lately? It's super simple, and kind of fun. Narrating what my future self would tell me. Imagine you're cooking dinner, and your future self is there, fluent and confident. What would they say about your progress? Wow, you're doing great. Keep practicing, you're getting closer. Every day. It's a quick little boost, easy to fit into any moment, and honestly, it works wonders. And you know what? Feeling proud when you recognize a word in a movie, that's a real win. It's like a little spark of recognition, a reminder that all your hard work is paying off. It might be a simple word like, hello, or a more complex phrase, but that feeling, it's magic, isn't it? It reminds you that you're absorbing so much more than you realize. You're understanding, you're connecting, and you're growing. Speaking of connecting, I was just daydreaming about traveling and using my language skills in a new environment. It got me thinking, what's your dream destination to visit for practicing English? Somewhere bustling and vibrant, or maybe a quiet, cozy town. Share in the comments. I'd love to hear all about it. Okay, so, picture this. It's 2007. Flip phones are still cool, skinny jeans are just starting to be a thing, and I, bless my technologically challenged heart, am completely and utterly reliant on printed MapQuest directions. You know, those things? The ones where you'd print out like 15 pages of step-by-step instructions? Turn left at the third traffic light after the large oak tree. Seriously, oak tree. How was I supposed to know which oak tree? They all looked the same to me. Anyway, I had just gotten my first, real, job after college, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to conquer the world of accounting. Glamorous, I know. And this job required me to visit clients, often in places I'd never even heard of, let alone been to. My reliance on MapQuest was borderline unhealthy. I'd spend hours the night before meticulously highlighting the route, folding the pages just so, and practically memorizing every landmark. It was a process. A stressful one. One particular day, I had to drive to a client's office clear across the state for a crucial meeting. This wasn't just any client, this was the client. Landing their business would be a huge win for my company, and even bigger for little ol' me, fresh out of the gate. The pressure was on. So, there I am, armed with my trusty MapQuest printout, a thermos of lukewarm coffee. Because let's be real, who has time for hot coffee when navigating the wilds of suburbia, and a whole lot of nervous energy? The drive started smoothly enough. Sun shining, radio playing some early 2000s pop hit I'm sure. I'd cringe at now. Life was good. Or so I thought. About an hour in, I hit construction. Not just any construction, mind you, but the kind that reroutes traffic through a maze of orange cones and confusing, hand-painted signs. My carefully crafted MapQuest route? Useless. Absolutely useless. Panic started to set in. My palms got sweaty, my heart pounded like a drum solo, and I could feel the lukewarm coffee churning in my stomach. I tried to salvage the situation. I squinted at the detour signs, flipped frantically through the MapQuest pages, trying to find some semblance of familiarity, some landmark that could ground me. Nothing. It was like I'd been transported to another planet, a planet made entirely of orange cones and frustrated drivers. I pulled over to the side of the road, feeling a wave of despair wash over me. I was lost, hopelessly, terrifyingly lost. I imagined myself missing the meeting, losing the client, getting fired. My inner monologue was a dramatic masterpiece. Just then, a kind-looking older woman in a beat-up station wagon pulled up beside me. She rolled down her window, her face etched with concern. "Honey, are you all right?" she asked, her voice warm and reassuring. Explaining my predicament through choked-back sobs, I felt like a complete idiot. She listened patiently, nodding sympathetically as I recounted my MapQuest woes. Then, with a twinkle in her eye, she pointed to a small, unassuming device suctioned to her dashboard. "Have you ever tried one of these?" she asked, gesturing to the device. "A GPS? A GPS. I'd heard of them, of course. Seen them in movies, but they seemed so complicated. Like something only tech-savvy people used. Me? I could barely operate a VCR, let alone a GPS. She sensed my hesitation. "Honey," she said, her voice gentle, "it's like having a personal navigator right there on your dash. It tells you exactly where to go, turn by turn. No more oak trees to decipher." She spent the next 10 minutes patiently explaining how it worked. How to enter an address, how to follow the voice prompts, how to avoid traffic. She even showed me how to adjust the volume so the voice wouldn't scare me half to death. Every time it gave a direction. It felt like a whole new world was opening up to me. I was still a bit apprehensive, but I thanked her profusely, feeling a glimmer of hope rekindle within me. Following her instructions, I punched in the client's address into the GPS, which, I admit, took me a few tries. Those tiny buttons, and waited with bated breath. A calm, robotic voice filled the car. "In 500 feet, turn left." I gasped. It actually worked. It was a miracle. I followed the voice's instructions, feeling a sense of awe and disbelief wash over me. No more paper maps, no more deciphering cryptic directions. Just a clear, concise voice guiding me, turn by turn, towards my destination. The rest of the drive was uneventful. In a good way. I arrived at the client's office with time to spare, feeling composed, confident, and like I had just conquered Mount Everest. The meeting went brilliantly. I landed the client, celebrated with my team, and drove home feeling like a total rock star. But honestly, the biggest victory that day wasn't the client. It was conquering my fear of technology and embracing the magic of the GPS. It was a small step for technology, maybe, but a giant leap for me. You know, looking back, it's funny how something so commonplace now, something we take for granted, felt so revolutionary back then. It wasn't just about navigation, it was about realizing that embracing new things, even if they seem daunting at first, can open up a whole new world of possibilities. And it all started with a kind stranger, a beat-up station wagon, and a little device that changed the way I navigate, literally and figuratively. It's funny the things you remember, isn't it? I still chuckle when I think about those MapQuest days, the frantic page flipping, the desperate search for the elusive oak tree. Now, I just tap an address into my phone, and off I go. But I'll never forget that day, the day I learned to use a GPS, the day I took a small step out of my comfort zone and discovered a whole new world of confidence and possibility. And honestly, I'm pretty proud of how far I've come. From oak trees to satellites, baby. Who knew? Okay, so, you know how sometimes you get this urge. This almost primal need to create something with your own two hands? That's how I felt about bread. I'd been buying those crusty, artisanal loaves from the bakery down the street, the ones that cost an arm and a leg but smell like heaven. And I thought, surely, I can do this. How hard can it be? Famous last words, right? Let me tell you, my first attempt, oh, it was a disaster. A glorious, gooey disaster. I'd printed out this recipe online, something complicated with a pre-ferment and a proofing basket I didn't even own. I mean, a proofing basket? It sounded so fancy, so professional. I used a colander lined with a tea towel instead. Big mistake. The kitchen looked like a flour bomb had exploded. Flour dusted everything: the counter, the floor, my eyebrows. I looked like a ghostly baker, covered in a fine white powder. And the dough? Sticky. So unbelievably sticky. It clung to my fingers, to the rolling pin, to everything. You know that feeling when you're trying to knead dough and it feels like you're wrestling a small, glutinous alien? Yeah, that was me. I persevered, though. I imagined myself pulling a perfectly golden loaf out of the oven, the crust crackling just so, the aroma filling the house. That image kept me going. I kneaded and I punched and I pleaded with the dough to cooperate. Finally, I managed to wrestle it into something resembling a ball and shoved it into my makeshift proofing basket, the tea towel-lined colander. Then came the waiting. The recipe said 2 hours. 2 hours. I paced. I peeked. I prodded the dough nervously. It did something. It sort of puffed up a little, but it also looked strangely flat. I couldn't tell if it was rising or just settling. Finally, the 2 hours were up. Time for the bake. I preheated the oven, carefully transferred the blob, onto a baking sheet, slashed the top with a knife. It felt very professional, even if the blob didn't look very professional, and slid it into the oven. Then, I waited some more. And that's when the magic was supposed to happen. The kitchen should have filled with the warm, yeasty scent of baking bread. My apartment should have become a beacon of deliciousness, drawing in neighbors with promises of warm, crusty goodness. Instead, a strange, slightly acrid smell started to permeate the air. I opened the oven door cautiously. My loaf had spread. It hadn't risen so much as it had melted. It was pale, flat, and vaguely sad-looking. It resembled a giant, deflated pancake more than a loaf of bread. My heart sank. All that effort, all that flour, and this thing was the result. I pulled it out of the oven, poked it with a finger. It was dense, heavy, and sighed. My grand bread-making dreams lay in ruins, flattened and pale on a baking sheet. But, you know what? Even though it was a complete failure, I learned something. I learned that baking bread wasn't as simple as throwing ingredients together. It was a science, an art, a delicate dance between yeast, flour, and time. And I, clearly, hadn't mastered the steps. So, what did I do? I ate the pancake bread, of course. It wasn't good, but it was edible. And with every chewy bite, I vowed to try again. My second attempt was marginally better. The loaf was still a bit flat, the crust a little too hard, but it was definitely bread. Real, actual bread. I felt a surge of pride, a sense of accomplishment. I'd conquered the yeast. Or at least, I'd managed to coax it into cooperating a little. And then came the third attempt, and the fourth, and the fifth. Each time, I learned something new. I learned the importance of proper kneading, the subtle signs of a well-proofed dough, the magic of a hot oven. I learned about different types of flour, different hydration levels, different shaping techniques. I even invested in a proper proofing basket. No more colanders for me. Slowly, gradually, my loaves started to resemble the ones from the fancy bakery. They rose higher, they browned more evenly, they developed a beautiful, crackly crust. The aroma that filled my kitchen was no longer acrid, but warm and inviting, a symphony of yeast and flour and warmth. And you know what the best part was? Sharing it. Breaking bread with friends and family, seeing the smiles on their faces as they took a bite, hearing the compliments, that was the real reward. It wasn't just about the bread itself, it was about the process, the journey, the joy of creating something with my own hands and sharing it with the people I loved. Now, I'm not saying I'm a professional baker or anything. My loaves aren't always perfect. Sometimes they're a little lopsided, sometimes the crust is a bit too thick, sometimes I overproof the dough and it collapses in the oven. But you know what? That's okay. Because even the imperfect loaves are delicious. And each one is a testament to the journey, a reminder of that first disastrous attempt, the flat, pancake-like bread that started it all. So, if you're thinking about trying your hand at baking bread, I say go for it. Embrace the mess, embrace the failures, embrace the learning process. Because even if your first loaf looks like a deflated alien pancake, the satisfaction of creating something with your own hands is worth it. Trust me, and who knows, you might even discover a hidden talent, a passion for the art of bread making. Or, at the very least, you'll have a funny story to tell. You know what I mean. Learning a new language is totally within your reach, and you know what? It can be incredibly enjoyable too. Think of language as music, practice your tune. Just like a melody unfolds note by note, your English fluency will grow word by word, phrase by phrase. Every conversation is a chance to play your unique linguistic tune, so embrace the rhythm and enjoy the journey. And guess what? Here's a fun little practice idea. Give advice to your younger self aloud. Imagine you could whisper words of wisdom to your past self. What would you say? Doing this while you're cooking dinner, taking a walk, or just relaxing can be surprisingly helpful. It's a low-pressure way to practice speaking without even realizing you're studying. Trying to imitate expressions and gestures naturally can feel a bit awkward at first, right? We've all been there. You understand what someone's saying, but when it's your turn, you might hesitate. It's like trying to learn a new dance. You need to practice the steps before you can flow freely. But keep going, because every small step forward is a victory. You're doing great. You will not believe what happened the other day. I was eavesdropping, in a good way, of course, on a conversation in English, and it struck me how much the language has become a part of everyday life. It got me thinking, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too. How has learning English changed your daily routine? Share your experiences in the comments. I'm genuinely excited to hear your stories. Okay, so grab a cuppa, settle in, because this story is a journey. It's about a handmade card, yes, but it's really about so much more. It's about, well, you'll see. It was a blustery November day, the kind where the wind howls like a hungry wolf. At your door and the sky is this bruised, purplish gray. Remember those days? The leaves were swirling around like tiny, frantic dancers, and the air smelled like damp earth and wood smoke. That cozy, almost melancholic scent that always makes me feel both nostalgic and expectant. You know what I mean? Like something magical is just around the corner. Anyway, I was feeling a bit lost, a bit adrift. Things hadn't been easy. I'd just gone through a tough breakup, the kind that leaves you questioning everything. My job felt like a treadmill going nowhere, and honestly, I just felt blah. Like a deflated balloon. And it was my grandma's birthday. Grandma Rose. She's Grandma Rose. A force of nature disguised as a tiny woman with a heart of gold. She's the kind of person who can make sunshine out of a rainy day, you know. And I knew, deep down, that I wanted to do something special for her, something more than just a store-bought card. Something that came from here, Tap's heart. But crafting? Me? Absolutely not my forte. My artistic skills peaked in kindergarten with finger painting. Seriously, I once tried to knit a scarf and ended up with something that resembled a tangled bird's nest. It was traumatic. So, naturally, the idea of making a handmade card filled me with a healthy dose of terror. Yet, there I was, rummaging through my cupboards. I found some old construction paper. Remember that stuff? The kind that feels slightly rough against your fingers? A half-used glue stick that was stubbornly refusing to stick to anything, some glitter, because, well, glitter makes everything better, right? And a few stray markers that looked like they'd survived a war. I spread everything out on the kitchen table, the cold surface a stark contrast to the warm mug of tea cradled in my hands. And then I just stared blankly at the paper, at the glitter, at the pathetic little glue stick. Where do I even begin? I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to channel Grandma Rose. Her warmth, her resilience, her unwavering belief in the good in everything. And then, something clicked. I didn't need to create a masterpiece. I just needed to create something honest. Something that reflected the love I felt for her. So, I started with the paper. I folded it carefully, the crisp crease a small, satisfying sound in the quiet of the kitchen. And then, I picked up a marker, a faded blue, Grandma Rose's favorite color, and started to draw. Not anything fancy, mind you, just flowers. Simple, childlike flowers with wobbly petals and wonky stems. But as I drew, something shifted within me. The anxiety started to melt away, replaced by a quiet focus. I added leaves, little green swirls reaching out. From the stems, I sprinkled a bit of glitter, because, well, glitter. And then, I realized I needed something more. Something to anchor it all. That's when I remembered the box of old photographs tucked away in the attic. I raced upstairs, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet, and dug through the dusty box until I found it. A picture of Grandma Rose and me, taken at the beach years ago. We're both laughing, our hair windswept, the ocean stretching out behind us like a shimmering blue blanket. I carefully cut out the photo and glued it to the card. The glue stick, miraculously, decided to cooperate. And then, with a shaky hand, I wrote inside, "Happy birthday, Grandma Rose. Love you more than words can say." It wasn't perfect. Far from it. The flowers were a little lopsided, the glitter was a bit enthusiastic, and my handwriting looked like a spider had crawled across the page. But you know what? It was real. It was me. And that, I realized, was all that mattered. Guess what happened next? I drove over to Grandma Rose's house, the wind still whipping around me, but this time, it didn't feel so menacing. It felt invigorating, like it was cheering me on. When I gave her the card, she just beamed. Her eyes, the same shade of blue as the flowers on the card, crinkled at the corners, and she pulled me into a hug that smelled of lavender and vanilla, a scent that always reminded me of home. "Oh, honey," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "this is the most beautiful card I've ever received." And in that moment, I knew. It wasn't about the perfect lines or the flawless execution. It was about the love, the intention, the time and effort I'd poured into creating something specifically for her. It was about the connection. That day, making that simple, imperfect card, wasn't just about Grandma Rose's birthday. It was about me finding my way back to myself. It was about rediscovering the joy in creating, the power of connection, and the beauty in imperfection. It reminded me that even in the midst of the chaos and the heartbreak, there's always room for a little bit of magic. And sometimes, all it takes is a piece of paper, a bit of glue, and a whole lot of love to create something truly extraordinary. You know? It's like that feeling you get when you're finally able to express something that's been bottled up inside. It's liberating. And that blustery November day, while making that handmade card, I felt free. And that, my friend, is a gift more precious than anything you could ever buy in a store. So, yeah, it's just a card, right? But it's so much more than that. It's a little piece of my heart, given freely, and received with love. And that, I think, is what makes it special. So, you know how sometimes you just feel this pull to do something different? That's how I felt last Tuesday. I woke up, sun streaming through the window, birds chirping, a perfectly ordinary day. But something inside me whispered, museum. Specifically, the little local history museum downtown. I hadn't been there since I was a kid, probably on a field trip where I was more interested in the gift shop dinosaurs than anything else. But this time, the call was strong. So, I grabbed a cardigan, because, you know, museums are always a little chilly, and off I went. The museum itself is tucked away on a quiet side street, almost swallowed by the towering modern buildings around it. It's this charming old brick building, with a tiny, almost overgrown garden out front. Stepping inside felt like stepping back in time. The air was cool and still, with this faint, almost dusty scent, like old books and forgotten things. You know that smell? It's almost comforting in a way. The lobby was small, with a creaky wooden floor and a sweet little lady behind a desk piled high with pamphlets. She looked up, smiled this gentle, knowing smile, and said, "Welcome back." Now, I'm sure she says that to everyone, but it felt like she knew I'd been away for a while. I paid my ridiculously low entrance fee, seriously, $5? And she handed me a brochure, a map, and this little button that said, "I heart local history." I chuckled, pinned it on, and started my exploration. The first room I wandered into was dedicated to the town's founding. Black and white photographs lined the walls, showcasing stern-faced men in top hats and women in long dresses. There were displays of old tools, land deeds with spidery handwriting, and a replica of the original town charter, so faded, you could barely make out the words. It's funny, isn't it, how these seemingly mundane objects can hold so much history. These were the people who built the foundation of everything around me. I found myself just standing there, staring at their faces, wondering what their lives were like, what their dreams were. Then, I stumbled upon this tiny, unassuming display case tucked in a corner. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was a child's shoe. Just one shoe. A little leather boot, worn and scuffed, with a button missing. And next to it, this small, handwritten note. Belonged to Thomas Ashton, lost during the Great Flood of 1928. My breath hitched. Suddenly, the history wasn't just names and dates anymore. It was a little boy playing by the river, maybe splashing in puddles, completely unaware of the tragedy about to unfold. That single shoe, it just broke my heart. It made the history real, you know? Personal. I moved on, a little heavier in my heart, to the next room, which showcased the town's industrial boom. Massive machinery, photographs of bustling factories, and displays of products made right there in my little town, everything from buttons to bicycles. I saw this old sewing machine, almost identical to the one my grandmother used to have. I remember sitting at her feet as a child, watching her nimble fingers work the fabric, mesmerized by the whirring of the wheel. That memory, so vivid, so warm, suddenly intertwined with the history before me. It made me realize how connected we are to the past, how the threads of our lives are woven into this larger tapestry. Guess what happened next? I found a whole section dedicated to the town's quirky traditions. There was this bizarre annual pie-eating contest, a yearly parade celebrating the town's founder's pet pig, yes, a pig, and even a display dedicated to the legendary, hairy man of Henderson's Hollow, a local myth that scared the living daylights out of me as a kid. I spent ages reading the newspaper clippings, laughing at the old photographs, and realizing that the town I thought I knew had this whole other, hidden layer of, well, weirdness. But it was charming. It was us. I wandered through rooms dedicated to everything from wartime efforts to local artists, each display sparking a new thought, a new connection. I even learned that my great-great-grandfather owned a small bakery on Main Street, something I never knew. I felt like a detective, piecing together the puzzle of my town, and in a way, the puzzle of myself. In the last room, I found a small interactive exhibit where you could record your own memories of the town. I hesitated at first, feeling a little silly. But then, I thought, why not? So, I sat down, took a deep breath, and started talking. I told them about growing up there, about my favorite childhood spots, about the time I accidentally set off the fire alarm at the school talent show. You know, the little things, the things that make up a life. It felt good, like adding my own tiny thread to the tapestry. As I was leaving, I noticed a small gift shop tucked away in a corner. I almost skipped it, figuring it would be full of generic souvenirs. But something made me peek inside. And there, amongst the keychains and postcards, I found it. A small replica of that little leather boot, the one lost in the flood. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands, feeling the weight of its story. I knew I had to have it. It wasn't just a trinket, it was a reminder. A reminder of the lives lived, the stories told, and the history that connects us all. Walking out of the museum, the sun felt warmer, the air fresher. The world around me seemed richer, somehow. I realized that the museum wasn't just about the past. It was about understanding the present, appreciating the place I call home, and recognizing that I'm a part of something much bigger than myself. It was a truly magical experience. And you know what? I think I'll go back again soon. Maybe next time we can go together? What do you say? Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching and staying with me throughout this video. I truly appreciate you spending your time here. I always enjoy connecting with you all. If you'd like to stay updated and keep practicing your English speaking and listening with me every day, I'd love for you to follow, like, subscribe, and share this video. You know, before we go, it made me wonder, is there a skill you've been meaning to practice next weekend? It's always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about and planning, plus writing it down in the comments is a fantastic way to practice expressing yourself in English. It would be wonderful to connect with you there. See you tomorrow, and remember to take good care of yourselves and keep practicing. You've got this.